Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, and welcome to the Sannam S4 India Elections Special Webinar on Higher Education in India. I'm delighted to welcome a very good panel, both here in our studio in New Delhi, as well as Amy Baker, who I'll shortly introduce, who's dialing in from London. A few house rules about this evening's webinar. We are broadcasting live from Delhi. We are known to have the odd power cut here at times of summer heat. So please do bear with us if we lose the video. We will hopefully continue via the phone link. If we lose you via the phone link, we have another redundant phone link and we'll dial back in again. There will be a number of poll questions that we'll be putting to you this evening. Please do look out for the poll questions in your chat boxes, and please do respond to those poll questions as effectively as you can as they come through to you. And we'd welcome any questions that you have. We'll try and pose as many of those to the panel as we possibly can. Those that we don't address this evening, we will certainly send through to you in the next day or two with our full assessment of those questions. So without any further ado, let us begin. Our first poll question of the evening will be, who will win the India election? This is a little test for those of you out there to see who is actually paying attention or whether it actually matters to everyone. So first of all, you please respond to that poll question. Thank you very much. Responses coming through. And the second poll question, as that one closes. How important is India to your international agenda? Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you very much. So, I'd like to introduce my panel to all of you this evening. Dialing in from London, we have Amy Baker, who is the founder and director at The Pie News, an online higher education website which attracts 30,000 unique visitors every month. Hello, Amy.
Hi there, everyone.
And on my right in the studio, Sandeep Unitan, who is the deputy editor of the India Today magazine, the most widely read India magazine in India, with a readership of 15 million citizens across the country. Sandeep is also the TV anchor for the English news channel Headlines Today, and he is also in the final stages of writing a HarperCollins commissioned book on the 26/11 atrocity of Mumbai and the role that the Indian commandos played in the attacks. Welcome, Sandeep. Delighted to have you.
Thank you.
On my left, two familiar faces to many of you. John Phillip at the far left, our Head of Research and Partnerships for Education at Sannam S4, and Lakshmi, our Director and Head of Education in New Delhi. Putting the India election into context. The India election has attracted a huge amount of international interest, more so than many of the other elections that I've seen. The statistics for this India election are mind-boggling. There are 815 million eligible voters who started voting on April the 7th, and the conclusion of the elections will be on May the 12th, which is this Friday, and the election result will be announced. And we are expecting a decisive victory, and I'll come on to some of the decisive views that some of our panelists have. But India, as you well know, is at a point of real transition, in my opinion. I've been in India for 5 of the last elections, and I truly believe that this election has significant importance in the future of India. Many opportunities have come and have been passed by over the last 5 to 10 years, and I'm very much hoping and expecting that we are going to see significant change come Friday once the election result has been announced. So without any further ado, I'd like to pass you across to Lakshmi, who's going to talk to you about the Indian election, its outcomes, and the impact it's going to have, particularly vis-a-vis higher education.
Thank you, Adrian.
As you know, we are going through a momentous election at this point in time, which closed today. Today was the last day of the poll. 100 million new citizens who turned the voting age voted in this election. I'm going to take the next 20 minutes to take you through what I consider as the present scenario, what are the key challenges that are being faced by the higher education sector in India, what is at stake with respect to higher education, and we are going to look at the manifesto of the party that I consider is going to win this election, and what are the international engagement opportunities that exist for higher education institutions. So we have just coming to the end of 10 years of Congress-led UPA coalition government. In the last 10 years, this government has built 16 new central universities, several new IIMs and IITs, which are flagship institutions with respect to India. Our spend on education has gone up by 8 times. Under this government, the attention of the world has been focused on the huge skills gap that India has, and the number 500 million has been etched in all our minds, which is the number that we need to upskill by 2022. Unfortunately, with respect to foreign education providers, the Foreign Education Providers Bill has been pending for the last 4 years. It was introduced in the Parliament in 2010 by Kapil Sibal, but then it went into cold storage for want of across the border, across the party line support. Now, what are the key challenges that India faces with respect to its higher education? So now we have categorized them under 6 C's. India needs to rapidly expand her capacity. We currently have 28 million of our children in the higher education space, but in the next 20 years, we need to find additional 40 million university places. So that is a huge capacity challenge that India has. We have got a problem with respect to our skills mismatch, because we are turning out graduates in commerce and engineering with little or no capability, whereas the demand lies elsewhere. 2013 was a very tough year for students who were looking to study abroad, and also for institutions that are dependent on India, as India is the second largest source country, because our currency lost 20% of its value over a matter of few weeks in 2013. And it is expected that if we get a stable government, the mood of the voters will improve and the rupee can strengthen. Having said that, our central bank is of the view that they do not want the rupee to be too strong, because a very strong rupee is not very good for our economy. So between the strength of the currency and stability of the currency, I would perhaps choose stability of the currency, because it helps students as well as institutions in planning their numbers when it comes to choosing to study abroad. As we push our enrollment ratios up, currently we are at 18%. Our ambition is to be at 30%. We would have more and more of our youth going into the higher education space, and that means that we need to create more jobs that will satisfy them, that are meaningful to them. It is expected that 200 million new people are going to enter into the workforce in India, which means that India needs to create additional 15 million jobs every year. At this point in time, with a growth percentage of under 5%, India hardly creates 2 million jobs per annum. In terms of the caliber of our faculty, the caliber of our educational programs, our training programs, a lot has been debated in the public arena. A framework that defines exactly who needs to do what and how we can integrate our higher education system with skills, because our higher education system is largely linear, at least that is what I feel. That discussion has been taking place over several years. Every time you go to a FICCI Higher Education Summit, this is one of the topics under debate. And the last C that we see is the clarity that India and everybody who engages with India in terms of her higher education needs to know in terms of the roles, responsibilities, and also the rules that exist for engagement with India. What is at stake? Now, we have had the last day of elections today. We have had 100 million new voters who were added onto the rolls and who went to vote. If you look at what is at stake, the numbers are mind-boggling. We became the third largest economy in 2011. after the US and China. We are the second largest source country for international students when it comes to higher education institutions. We have the second largest education system. Today my colleague John and I were at a meeting at the British Council, and we heard that in the coming years we can soon overtake China and become the largest education system. 50% of India's population is under the age of 25 years, and we are also the world's IT backbone. So that should probably set the scene in terms of what is at stake here when it comes to India's higher education. We have a duty towards our students. We have a duty towards our young population. So having said that, here is what we think is going to happen on May 16th. Our call is that we are going to get a BJP-led government, which will take over on May 16th, this Friday. And this has been an election, that has been fought on a presidential style, first time ever. The discourse has been shaped by what we call as Modi's Gujarat model, where an investor-friendly ecosystem has been created and has been fostered. The state also runs a very, very successful, vibrant Gujarat conference biennially, attracting investors from around the world to invest in Gujarat. And this is of particular importance, Vibrant Gujarat Summit. Now, just so that we know what BJP is talking about in its manifesto. So BJP's manifesto, as is expected, is very nationalistic in its tone. It promises to make India the next knowledge superpower. The education spend is, they have promised to take it up to 6% of the GDP. It is currently at 4%. They have said that they're going to set up a national commission on education, which is to kind of look at what is wrong with our education system, as if there aren't enough studies around there which talks of what is wrong with our education system, we all know. But in the next 2 years, they are expecting to bring out a report on what is wrong and what needs to be done. They are going to recast the Universities Grants Commission, UGC, which currently is a grant awarding body. They want to recast that as the Higher Education Commission, which in itself sounds very grand, if you ask me. And they say that, the role has to go beyond just granting, disbursed grants. The manifesto also promises that the party is going to look at a needs assessment exercise. This has largely got to do with the fact that there is recognition within BJP that there are skills mismatch that is rampant across all sorts of areas where students are currently studying, and also what the industry needs in terms of what manpower requirement is existing currently across various industry sectors. So this needs assessment exercise, which from my perspective, it's a very welcome addition to the manifesto. And Mr. Modi, who's a strong believer in skilling of citizens, so obviously there is a strong emphasis on skilling. Having said that, it is very, very important to understand what Modi's focus is in terms of, how he looks at the youth and what it is that we need to do. So as late as last Tuesday, Mr. Modi had given an interview where he said that the next war to be fought is the war of jobs. And he is an ardent believer in governance, and he always says that it's less about government and more about governance. Employment and generation is a huge item in his agenda, and he is someone who has said that he wants to create an IIT and an IIM in every single state of India. So we have 29 states, just so that you have a figure. He is known as someone who is capable of cutting through procedural delays and a great believer in skills. And he looks at India through the education in higher education, especially from a skills perspective. So his lens, when he looks at education, it is beyond just a degree. It's all about skills. And one telling comment that he has made is that IITs are the pride of last century, and the ITIs are the pride of this. So this in itself should tell you what the man thinks about education. And there is something else that Mr. Modi has talked about. It's about Brand India and the 5 T's of Brand India: talent, tradition, tourism, trade, and technology. That will determine how, this just gives us some idea about what this man thinks about where the future of this country lies. So having said that, what has been Modi's track record when it comes to higher education? So in the 10 years that Mr. Modi has been in power, when in 2003, there were 11 universities in Gujarat. Right now, there are 43 universities. He started the Vibrant Gujarat Summit in 2003. It's a biennial event, and it focuses on promoting Gujarat as a potential investment destination to foreign institutions and countries. And as part of the Vibrant Gujarat Summit, the first edition of the International Roundtable for Academic Institutions, IRAI, was organized in Gujarat in 2011. 33 delegates from 25 universities and 9 countries participated in this. And in the first edition, 74 MOUs were signed between universities in Gujarat and foreign institutions. In 2013, the same event witnessed 118 MOUs being signed with overseas institutions on day 1. Now, the focus of all these MOUs has been on international relations, strategic partnerships and research, faculty and student exchanges, and knowledge exchange and capacity building. Having said that, what are your international engagement opportunities? We would say that the time is ripe for stepping up your engagement with India. Capacity improvement is going to be a big ticket item with the new government that is going to come to power. The environment, we think, is going to be very conducive for students who are wanting to study abroad. At this point in time, 250,000 Indian students choose to study abroad every year, even at the same rate, which is at 0.089%. Which, if 70 million Indian students end up in the higher education space in 20 years' time, you're talking of 650,000 Indian students wanting to study abroad. That is at the current rate. Nothing grows. It stays at 0.089%. There is going to be a huge pushing forward in terms of our infrastructure agenda, which would mean that we will see increased uptake for courses in civil, construction, automobile engineering. Centers of excellence. Mr. Modi is a great believer in centers of excellence and student and faculty exchanges as well, as has been seen with the Vibrant Gujarat side event on education. So we think that the time is ripe for centers of excellence across India. What is stopping a man who has set up Vibrant Gujarat to kind of, set up a Vibrant India Summit? There's nothing stopping him. So as of now, even before Mr. Modi has come into power, the anticipation of him coming to power, there has been huge positive sentiment, which is reflected in our stock exchange. So we do see that there is going to be positive policy movement. But from the perspective of Foreign Education Providers Bill, we think that it is more or less dead, because the party in its manifesto has said that they are wanting to establish a National Education Commission. So I think on that front, we can expect to find something new. So I think I will leave my presentation at that point. Adrian?
Good, thank you very much. I mean, some tremendously interesting points, no doubt, for everyone to feverishly take notes on there, Lakshmi. We will be sending out the presentation afterwards, so for those of you still taking notes, relax. We will be sending out commentary for you all to review. But I'm going to bring in Amy here in London. Amy, you're in a privileged position at the Pi News, where you have 30,000 unique visitors to your website, focused on international higher education. You represent the views of people all over the world. What are the most pressing considerations and thoughts and concerns of your readers vis-a-vis the India election and the likely result?
Well, there's sort of 2 main focuses, I'd say, that our readers are interested in, which would be, one would be what's going to happen in India, and one would be what's going to happen with the outbound Indian population. I mean, as Lakshmi suggested, it's actually quite small at the moment compared to the size of the Indian youthful population, but it's still a very important market internationally for all markets, including the UK, US and Australia. So they're keen to see a stable currency, I would say, and they're keen to know what would happen depending on who comes in power in terms of demand for postgraduate and undergraduate education offshore. But they're also concerned to see whether there's going to be better opportunities for partnering onshore with universities, with colleges. And there's also some interest I've been picking up from readers in how the education agency industry might change, become better regulated with the government. And I suppose you might know quite well the education agency industry in India, and how there's lots of problems with that at the moment. So there's definitely interest into whether that might be improved with the new government.
Very good. Well, I'll pick up one of those points myself. The India rupee topic is a particularly pertinent one. We've seen the rupee drop 20–25% this year. Lakshmi mentioned it in her presentation. This is largely as a result of India sitting in an emerging markets basket of currencies, and the result of the US Fed Reserve's reducing its bond buyback. So India has suffered no worse or no better than most of the other BRIC currencies. However, very interestingly, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, you've seen both Narendra Modi in his campaigning talk about how manufacturing and export is an absolutely critical part of India's future, and therefore having a competitive currency is key. So that largely supports Lakshmi's view that the rupee will be kept where it is. You will not see necessarily the huge amounts of defensive measures that the RBI has taken to defend the rupee's weakening in the past 6 to 12 months, largely to no avail. But also, very interestingly, the new RBI governor, Raju Raghuram, was recently quoted in Washington saying that he felt a weak rupee and certainly a stable rupee was in India's interest. And I saw an article this week which reflected on about 10 to 15 of the top international forex traders, mostly leading banks, who have all suggested that the rupee, where it is at now, is likely to remain certainly for the foreseeable future. In terms of the questions on the agents, I think a very excellent question, and I'll come back to that with you, Lakshmi, in a little bit. You know, there's certainly interest we see in what is likely to happen to student recruitment. Lakshmi, in a nutshell, you've got a tremendous experience in the student recruitment industry. Do you see that that's going to change? Do you see that the agents network, do you see that international engagement is likely to change overnight with a new government, or do you think there are bigger priorities to deal with?
I think regulating agents is still not on the radar of any government, to be honest. And agency business is here to stay in different, in some kind of shape or size or form. However, what is going to happen is that, because of the interest in, studying abroad, which I feel is going to remain robust, and if the rupee stabilizes, and I don't see it going below 55, it will range between 55 to 60 rupees to a dollar, and if it is stable, we will still see a lot of interest in wanting to study abroad. And agencies, regulating the agencies is something that's not come under the radar for anybody. Agencies will still continue to function. Perhaps how the agencies are going to evolve over the next 5 years is going to be a very interesting thing to watch. More and more agencies are these days thinking that they really need to kind of, gone are the days when you had just an agent which just specialized in one country. We have everybody now specializing in multiple countries. It's a way of hedging their risk. But there is definitely a need to kind of regulate, what agencies say and do. Having been an agent in my past life, I do feel very strongly about, agents have a responsibility towards the future of the students that they counsel. And if they are not regulated, then they should be self-regulated at least. That is my opinion.
So there are a range of different interests that international institutions have in India, both student recruitment, partnerships, alumni development, executive education. I think it's probably a good time to bring up poll question number 3. And poll question number 3 is asking you, what is your current engagement model in India? That's the role that you're focused on. We're keen to understand what is your priority in India. Is it student recruitment? Is it research and collaboration? Credit transfer programs? Summer abroad or study abroad programs? Or currently you don't have any engagement in India? If we could just take a few seconds for you to respond to those questions, that would be much appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Sandeep, I'm going to bring you into the debate now. We know here in India, because we've been watching the press very, very closely, and you've been a large contributor of that media. India's student traffic overseas is a loss of $6 billion per annum to the Indian exchequer. Narendra Modi is a right-wing leader. He's strong nationalist. What do you think his view is going to be of that 250,000 people that Lakshmi mentioned, the $6 billion that is going overseas?
Well, Adrian, Narendra Modi is a man who's constantly emphasized on capacity building within the country. And whether it's the defense industry, he talks about, building up the indigenous defense industry, which is, we have been importing arms for, we've raised this in the past. We're importing 70% of our requirements from foreign countries. The same goes for manufacturing. That's another key concern of his, where he says that we have kind of become a trading shop. We aren't the manufacturing power that we could be, and we're losing out to the other Asian countries. And he's not been very clear on this aspect, but going by what he's been saying, one can very safely say that he would find ways of ensuring that that money doesn't go out of the country. It stays within, and he will find some way of retaining that foreign exchange within the country, either bringing the foreign universities here, getting them to set up campuses here, ensuring the students don't have to travel abroad. And another point about Modi I want to mention is that not a lot of people know that this is probably one of the very few politicians, at least one who's aspiring to be a prime minister, who's actually set up a university himself, a school, a high school himself. So this is a school on the outskirts of Ahmedabad, which he built over a period of 1 year, set up by a private trust. He takes great interest in that. So the reason I brought that up is this is a man who thinks very highly of education, and he's emphasized that throughout his career, because he's a person who came from very humble origins, and his mentor kind of pushed him to study, and after that there was no looking back for him, frankly. So once again, education is going to be a very clear focus for Narendra Modi, but it remains to be seen how he can manage the pushes and the pulls of the RSS, which is this right-wing Hindu nationalist body, which is categorized as a social organization which actually stays in the shadow. The BJP is the political arm of the RSS, and there are concerns that the RSS would actually push for a kind of an education policy that it believes in, which is the reinterpretation of certain aspects of education and culture and certainly history.
There are some that believe here that education remittances overseas are the one of the last remaining bastions for the Indian tax authorities to try and gain some hard-earned currency for themselves at the moment. The transactions take place, the money is taken overseas in foreign currency, and the Indian exchequer sees nothing of it. Yeah. Do you see, or do you agree with some of the analysts, which are quite shocking, I'm sure, for those that are listening? Do you see Narendra Modi going as far as potentially implementing a tax on foreign student fees in the country, or do you think that's probably something too?
I think that's too far down the future. I mean, it's way down the road. I mean, he would actually focus on a lot of other aspects, which is the low-hanging fruit in the education sector, which is what has been set out in the manifesto. I think he figured that out first before he went on to taxing students going abroad. So, and the other aspect, of course, is the fact that he would actually encourage a lot of ITIs, which is what Lakshmi brought out earlier, which is skilling the population. I mean, that is another very key thrust area, and that is another very key area of interest for Narendra Modi.
I was going to pick up on that point, and maybe if I may just defer that to John. I mean, I was really interested in Lakshmi's comment that the IIMs are the last, IITs are the last century, and John, with the activities that you're engaged in, can you expand on that a little bit? I mean, is there a way that we should be looking at this differently as international education institutions?
Well, yes. I mean, what this means is it broadens out the area of possible engagements for our colleagues overseas. Ideas are an excellent example, and the stats speak volumes about themselves. There are over 250 ITIs in the state, and over 50% of those are run under the PPP model, or the public-private partnership model. What this also means for the state is there is at least one ITI for every subdivision of a district in Gujarat. Okay. Besides the ITIs, there's also something known as the Kaushalyavardhak Kendras, or KVKs, which is a parallel skills training institute in the state of Gujarat. And the KVK model actually was awarded by the Prime Minister. It got the Prime Minister's award for public administration last year. And there are over 300 of those in the state. The unique thing about the KVK is that it takes skills development to the learner. Okay. Instead of asking them to come to the center goes to them. So there is a KVK in every panchayat level.
So that's something that Narendra Modi has focused on himself in Gujarat, may roll out to India. I mean, he's been dealing with a relatively small state of 60 million by Indian standards, but often talked about, and we've had a number of questions I'm starting to see come through, but often talked about now are MOOCs and the expansion of online education in India. Where do you see that going?
Gujarat has actually already implemented a satellite-based education in the state. Okay, that's part of taking education right down to the grassroots level. And the BJP manifesto very clearly talks about introducing new models of MOOC in India. That's part of the manifesto. So I'm not surprised that a man that has taken the e-learning route or the digitization route in the state, his government is probably one of the most transparent ones in the state. I mean, that website, which is called NarendraModi.com, is updated almost every minute, step by step. It makes it as transparent as possible. So I won't be surprised if there's a huge thrust on e-learning, including MOOCs and distance learning, by the way, that could take learning to every corner of the country. By the way, can I also just mention about the budget that the state of Gujarat has for skills development? That is 80% of our national budget for skills development. 800 crores for the state of Gujarat, where it's 1,000 crores for the whole of country, for the whole of the nation. So you can imagine the amount of, he puts his money where his mouth is. Simple.
So you see a lot of opportunities for international online education providers. Yep.
Transnational education, distance learning, e-learning, MOOCs are going to be the way forward.
I've got an interesting question that's coming through, and I'm happy to open this up to any of you to respond to. But the question says, many higher education institutions have been struggling to promote the arts in India over the last 5 to 10 years. Does what John's saying mean that we should give up, or is there still room for arts to be promoted as a range of disciplines?
I want to take that question. So if you look at the 5 T's that Modi has been talking about, one of the T's is tradition, and again, he has been one of those chief ministers who went out of his way to promote the Kite Festival in Gujarat, and it has just become such a big arty event, and has also kind of managed to integrate to that Kite Festival employment generation for kite makers. And he has had skills in, imparting to kite makers to make better kites, use good practices. So here is somebody who has really kind of gone out of his way to kind of give a platform to an art festival. And I do think that India has such a rich tradition of various forms of art forms, and some of them are dying. And it's high time that we do something about kind of promoting our own arts. Having said that, I do think that under Modi government, for arts, it will be indigenous arts that is going to first take a high priority than anything else. In terms of foreign institutions wanting to come and promote, say, art-related fine art program or pottery, a lot of those. I think there is so much that India needs to do to shore up her own art traditions. I think that should be the priority for the government, whichever government that comes to power.
Thank you. We've had a number of questions. At least 5 or 6 people have asked the same question, so I'm going to get it out onto the table now. Lakshmi, you've suggested that the Foreign Education Providers Bill is dead, and there have been a few exclamation marks that have gone behind the following question. Before I ask you to answer what is going to take its place, if anything, Amy, I'm going to bring you in here. The Foreign Education Providers Bill is used by many as the panacea to success for international higher education engagement in India. It's also, in my opinion, rightly or wrongly, seen as a bit of an excuse that people are waiting for the FEPB to come through before they write a detailed India engagement strategy. From your readership perspective, how important is that Foreign Education Providers Bill, and in particular the ability for foreign providers to set up campuses in India?
How important is it? Did you say?
Yes. How important an agenda item is it for them? Is it just a red herring, or is it really important to most people that that you're talking to out
I think it's certainly true that a lot of them are waiting on sort of amber light at the moment. They don't. No one is taking definite steps until they see some sort of action happening on that, and everyone has been in a state of wait and see. I definitely think that's true, but there's definitely a lot of appetite out there to do more in India, but I think a lot of people do see that as something they need to wait for.
Okay, Lakshmi, what is the rebirth of the Foreign Education Providers Bill?
Actually, the answer to that would be that we don't know, because from going by the manifesto, it says that they want to first establish a National Education Commission, which has to come out with a report in 2 years. If BJP is going to come to power, FEP is going to go on permanent cold storage till they figure out what it is that they want to do. And, for all you care, I mean, Modi will turn around and say that, I don't need a Foreign Education Providers Bill. I can take a decision that, we will allow foreign education institutions to come in so long as they meet certain, parameters, because here is a man who is very famous for single window clearances. So you don't need a bill to get stuck in the parliament, to have a consensus built around it. You don't need that. If he is someone who, if he decides that tomorrow he wants to let foreign education institutions come in to build our capacities or to offer certain courses, etc., he is going to go ahead and do it. He is not going to wait around to have a bill passed out of the parliament. So, but in the current form, and also the fact that, it is Mr. Kapil Sibal who introduced Foreign Education Providers Bill in 2010, and there is no love lost between the two of them. I don't think that bill is going to see the light of the day. At least that is my bet on the FEP.
Can I say something else, actually? Sorry,
please go ahead,
to jump
Amy.
in. No, I just wanted to mention that the British Council also published a report called Understanding India, and they've also advised institutions to, quote, not to wait for transformational legislation to emerge from central government on international cooperation, but to adopt a flexible and creative approach. So I think, yeah, I mean, they're backing your point really, Lakshmi, is that people have to move without waiting for this.
I think one thing that we discussed as a panel prior to the webinar starting was about Modi's approach to other agenda items about manufacturing, about job creation. And in Gujarat, he has actively gone out and sought investment from foreign manufacturing investment. So there are big auto plants there now, chemicals plants, ports providers, and he's been unashamed about inviting in foreign investment, foreign skills, foreign expertise. For me, the Indian Foreign Education Providers Bill became a political hot potato, and it really lost meaning within Parliament, and it became, as we said, something that everyone just defended because politically it had a lot of stigma attached to it by the end, I suppose. But do we all agree that the same approach could be taken with education as it was with manufacturing, or is with manufacturing and other investment in India? The need is there to educate India. The need is there to skill it up. That Modi will take a practical view and bring in whatever resources is necessary to do that?
I think just to add to what Lakshmi said earlier is that Modi is not a man who's going to wait for a bill to come in Parliament, and he's pretty decisive. And if you study the way he operates in the past, he's been a 3-term chief minister in Gujarat. His model of governance is to work through the bureaucracy. So what we might be looking at is a very powerful cabinet secretariat or the prime minister's office, which actually pushes through a lot of legislations and without going through the parliament, which he sees as being a hurdle to his style of governance. So you might actually see a whole lot of decisions coming out in the first 100 days, and we're all just waiting to hear if there is a Modi government in place. Then 15th August is going to be the time when he's going to roll out a lot of these schemes on the 15th August is the Independence Day address that the Prime Minister speaks to the people. So we can expect a lot of surprises there.
We've got a comment coming through from one of our attendees that the fact that offshore campuses as a term has been rather misleading, and the comment has been made that let's not pretend that offshore campuses are the be-all and end-all of international education. That really lends itself, that point, to what we're saying, doesn't it? That it may not be red brick institutions that are established here, but technology, skills transfer, executive education programs, distance education, and let's not forget the investment that's required. There's a huge amount of investment in further and skills education internationally, and I think he will certainly welcome that, because it's recognised that India doesn't have the capacity to fund everything it needs to. So I think we're all quite optimistic about the opportunities for engagement, but I think it's going to be a realignment for many who have just saw a campus with a big brand over it.
Just look at the way his election campaign has been conducted. When he says technology, he swears by technology. He's putting his money where his mouth is, because his election campaign has been unprecedented for any Asian campaign. If you look at the way he's used 3D holograms and SMSs and call centers. Indian politicians, if Indian politicians were in the bullock cart age, Modi is already in the jet age when it came to using technology for campaigning. So I don't see any reason why he wouldn't do the same for other sectors like education, for instance.
And I think he's a big thinker. I don't think he is a man who thinks in small measures. For him, education is something that he feels passionately about. He will want to go after education in a big way, to see big things happening in the education space. And I do think that the largest support base for Modi in this election, if you look at it, are the youth. And I think he is someone who is aware of his what it is that he owes to the youth of this country. And I think all institutions, today it was quite heartening for me and John to be sat in that conference about rankings. And one of the constant refrains that we both heard was, we owe it to India's youth to have world-class institutions, to have world-class programs for them to go into. And I think Modi, as a prime minister, is perhaps more aware of that responsibility that lies on his shoulders than anyone else. And of course, a lot of it will be determined by who it is that we will have in the Ministry of Human Resources Development as the minister responsible for education. But having said that, having a Prime Minister who is deeply interested in education only augurs well for India.
And may I just also add about when you said about involving industry, be it local or overseas, there already exists a model for centrifugals in Gujarat where the government is ready to fund industries to find knowledge partners and set up training centers.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a defining difference, isn't it? That the higher education institutions may be different to the skills institutions, which obviously are already engaged with the private sector, but there will be opportunities for higher education institutions with industry more and more as Modi comes into power. I'm cognizant of the time. We've got a few minutes left, so I'm going to pose poll question number 4, which is what are your main concerns when engaging with India? The weakening rupee, tightening forex controls, or poor clarity on education policies? If you'd just like to respond to those. Great, thank you very much. Ticking up. Fabulous. Now, we've had well over 100 people subscribe for this evening's webinar from 5 different countries, which just shows the importance of these elections on the international higher education landscape. We will be running another webinar 100 days after the new government is formed, so please do keep a lookout for that. We'll be doing a detailed analysis of the actual policies and of what Narendra Modi and his bureaucrats are looking into. I believe you've got some of your own research that's going to be carried out, Sandeep, which we're looking forward to. But panel, Amy, John, Lakshmi, Sandeep, any additional comments? We've got lots and lots and lots of questions which we've had unanswered, which we'll circulate, but any additional comments that you'd like to make?
I think I am looking at May 16th with a lot of hope. I do think that it is high time we have policies in place that will do justice to all that India can hope to achieve and can, I want India to realize her potential, and for that we want an enabler as our Prime Minister. We want someone with a can-do attitude as our Education Minister, and with that hope, that is my hope for this.
John?
I'm looking forward to having a Prime Minister who can get the dividend that we talk about, the demographic dividend off the ground. 500 million people to train. The model that he's initiated and successfully implemented in the state of Gujarat seems to be reaping rich benefits there. I want to see that being rolled out all across the country now.
Amy, any thoughts in closing from you?
Yeah, sure. I think similar to actually a piece we wrote about Africa, I think the link between higher education and skills needs does need to be more closely aligned. I'm sure you probably are in a great place to advise your clients on that, but certainly India has a lot of young people to train, but they don't need to all just have degrees which aren't useful in the country. So I think that's one thing, really important thing to take note of. And student financing, I've been reading quite a lot about student financing for access to education. I think that could be really interesting, both for onshore education and possibly offshore via twinning programs as well.
Right, thank you. And then Sandeep, any closing remarks?
No, I just hope for speedy implementation. That's all. There is a how-to for everything in India. There are tons and tons of research that's been done. There's papers and commissions of inquiry and all. It all needs to be implemented, and it has to be implemented in a reasonable time frame. That's all I hope from the new government.
Well, we have a large number of questions which I apologise have been unanswered. Questions on the UGC and whether it's going to be reformed. Questions on the ability for foreigners to come and teach and actively work in India. The ability to finance the infrastructure that we're talking about. The partners that India is going to choose under a new Modi government. Who is going to be in favour, who is not going to be in favour. Some really interesting topics, so I'm going to leave that to John and Lakshmi to be busy overnight and respond to those questions, and we'll circulate details to all of you. So ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the election webinar. Now we're going to go to the polling questions and just bring up the results. So who will, according to you, win the elections? So I think everyone is largely in agreement that Narendra Modi will win, 75% of you. The rest think that Rahul Gandhi still has a chance. I think we're largely disagreed with the Rahul Gandhi statement. Maybe we've got some UPA Congress bureaucrats listening in. Next question, please, Sachit. How important is India to your internationalization agenda? 74% of you have responded that it's high. 24%, 26%, the remainder medium. So 74%, very, very high. Just shows how important India is, and bears testament to the number of people we've had not only sign up this evening but hang on all the way through. Thank you very much for doing that. The penultimate question was, what is your current engagement model in India? And we have a very good mix on the call this evening. 24% of you are from research collaboration background, 31% are student recruitment focused, 10% of you are on credit transfer programs, 14% of you are engaged in study abroad programs with India, and 21% of you are yet to engage in India but interested in hearing more. That's very interesting to know. And the final question, what are your major concerns? Weakening rupee, tighter control of Forex, which I suppose in a way is slightly aligned to the first point, 20% and 4% respectively, but the vast majority, 76%, are concerned about the poor clarity on education policies. Well, that tees me up perfectly to remind you about our post-election webinar, where we will be delivering detailed insights into the new government, their policies, and the impact that will have with you. Ladies and gentlemen, from all of the countries that you've dialed in from, and whichever time zone you're in, thank you very much, and we appreciate your time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.